Okay, so let's dive into something that's been generating a lot of buzz lately, especially if you're in shared services, and especially if you're in a regulated industry. Um, Thinking public sector, energy, healthcare, construction, infrastructure,
Mm.
maybe even insurance.
Yeah, those are the
Yeah,
ones.
and you're leading AI initiatives.
Right.
You're probably feeling a bit overwhelmed. Like there's all these fragmented efforts. People are trying different things. Nobody really knows who's responsible for what,
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
right?
Mm.
And you're probably also looking at your budget and thinking, we've got SAP. We've got our document management systems. We've got MS Teams. Why are we paying for all these extra AI tools that don't seem to integrate very well?
And it feels like adding more complexity instead of
Right.
simplifying.
Right. It's like, we already have systems. Why are we bolting on more things?
Hmm.
So today we're going to deep dive into something called servAImesh. But before you click away thinking this is just another sales pitch for some new AI platform, I want to assure you that's not what this is about.
Okay. Right, it's a bit different.
servAImesh is more of a strategic framework. They even call it an AI operating system for shared services.
I like that. Operating system.
Yeah, it's a good analogy. And here's the really cool part. It's designed to work with what you already have. Instead of replacing your existing systems, it acts as an overlay. So you can inject AI intelligence into your existing infrastructure without having to do a huge rip and replace.
And that's a huge barrier for a lot of organizations, right? That fear of having to dismantle everything they have and rebuild.
Right. It's like, that's going to be expensive and disruptive. I don't want to touch that.
Yeah, and it's risky.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to give you a clear understanding of what servAImesh is, what its core principles are, and how it can actually help organizations operating in these complex service environments bring some order and effectiveness to their AI initiatives.
Provide a bit of a new perspective, maybe.
Right. A new way of looking at things. And we're also going to look at some concrete first steps. They call it a paper prototype approach, which is really interesting.
Paper prototype. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's very low tech and very focused on getting the fundamentals right before you even think about technology.
The logic first before the technology. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And at the heart of servAImesh is this philosophy. No AI without service architecture strategy.
I love that.
It's a really powerful statement. Because so many AI projects fail, not because of the AI itself, but because the services they're trying to improve are just not well defined.
Absolutely.
There's no clear understanding of who's responsible for what, and there's no real strategic alignment. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, that's me. I'm that overwhelmed AI leader in the service backbone. This is for you.
Yeah, this is resonating, I think.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of servAImesh. And to do that, I thought we'd kind of do it as a little quiz show to make it a little more fun and interactive.
All right, I'm ready for the quiz show.
Okay, first question. Architecture. How do we build a stable foundation for AI in shared services? servAImesh points to a concept called servuktion.
Servuktion. Interesting.
Exterminate word.
Okay. So this is about really understanding what a service is before we try to, throw AI at it.
Exactly. It's about getting back to basics.
Makes sense.
So servuktion was developed by a guy named Huppert's, and it boils down to this core formula. Service equals Nutzeffekt plus object plus consummate. It sounds a little bit academic.
Not very targeting, yeah.
But it's actually really simple and powerful. It basically says that to understand any service, you have to define the benefit it provides. That's the Nutzeffekt. The thing it acts upon or involves, that's the object. And the recipient of the service, that's the consummate.
Okay, so the who, what, and why of the service.
Exactly. Use a great example in the materials we've been looking at. Bubble tea. You know bubble tea, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Everybody loves bubble tea.
So the service is providing a refreshing, enjoyable beverage. That's the Nutzeffekt. The object is all the ingredients. The tea, the tapioca pearls, the milk, all that stuff. And the consummate is the person enjoying their bubble tea.
Okay, so it's mapping out the whole process, the whole service journey.
Right. So now think about this in your world. HR, IT, procurement, whatever internal service you're dealing with, before you even start talking about AI, can you clearly define who the consummate is?
Yeah.
What is the object? And what is the Nutzeffekt?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people would struggle with that.
Because without that basic understanding, how can you possibly know what to automate or what problems AI should even be solving?
Right, you're just throwing technology at a problem you don't fully understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 2, change. How do we navigate the often tricky process of AI adoption in a way that actually sticks and delivers lasting value? ServAImesh introduces the LENI framework.
LNI. What's that stand for?
It stands for Learn, Engage, Navigate, Innovate. It's all about a human-centered approach to AI integration. It has 3 dimensions. First, roles. Who plays what part in this whole AI journey? You've got the AI sponsor, the champion, the visionary.
One who's really driving it forward.
Right. Then you've got the AI advocate who's kind of building bridges and fostering understanding.
Getting people on board.
Then you have the AI user, the person actually interacting with the AI tools and systems. And then you have the AI integrator, the technical person, making sure everything works seamlessly.
Okay. So clear roles and responsibilities.
Right. The second dimension is rhythmus, which is the cadence of learning and adaptation. It's structured around DOIT cycles. Discover, observe, ideate, transform. So it's an iterative process. You learn by doing, you adjust as you go.
It's not just a one-time implementation, it's a continuous process.
Exactly. And then the third dimension is direction, which is the overall transformation path. It starts with awareness, then moves to engagement, then experimentation, and finally embedding AI into the core of operations.
So it's a roadmap for the whole organization.
Yeah. So thinking back to those challenges we talked about earlier, role confusion, employee resistance.
Yeah.
How does this LNI framework address those?
Yeah, by providing that clear structure for participation. Everyone knows what their role is. There's a defined pathway for change.
Yeah.
And it creates a common language around AI.
Right. Everyone's on the same page.
Reduces uncertainty.
There's a really good workshop question that they highlight in the ServAImesh material. It's who currently takes on which role, and crucially, who is missing? I think that's a really valuable exercise for any team to do, to just step back and say, okay, who are our AI sponsors? Who are our advocates? Who's actually using the AI tools? And who's making sure it's all working properly?
Yeah, I love that. Just to map it out, get that visual.
Right, and then you can see where the gaps are.
Identify those blind spots.
All right, final quiz question. Governance and responsibility. How do we measure progress and make sure we're on the right track with our AI initiatives? This is where servAImesh introduces the Doppelstern.
Awful stern.
Yeah. It literally means 2-star.
Okay. I'm sensing a theme here with the German.
Yeah, well, servAImesh is a German framework.
Okay.
So the Doppelstern is a maturity model. It looks at 2 key axes. First is Servicereif, which is the maturity of your internal service delivery. So how efficient and effective are your HR processes, your IT support, your finance operations, all that good stuff.
The foundation.
Right. And then the second axis is KI-Reif, which is your organization's maturity in strategically, ethically, and organizationally integrating AI.
So it's looking at both sides of the coin. How good are your services and how ready are you for AI?
Exactly. So let's say you do the assessment and your organization gets a 4 on Servicereif and a 2 on KI-Reif. What does that tell you?
Tells me you've got a pretty solid foundation in terms of service delivery, but maybe your AI strategy is still a little bit immature.
Right. It gives you a really clear picture of where you need to focus your efforts.
Yeah, your strengths and weaknesses.
And to help you figure out your own Doppelstern rating, they have a self-check tool with 20 questions. 10 focused on service maturity and 10 focused on AI maturity. So you can get a pretty quick snapshot of where you stand.
Easy to use. Nice.
So we've looked at the 3 pillars of ServAImesh: Servoperative in a store, Curve Innovation for understanding service architecture, LNI for managing the human side of change, and the Doppelstern for assessing maturity. Now remember that analogy we talked about earlier, ServAImesh as the SAP for services?
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to come back to that.
It's such a powerful analogy. Think about what SAP did. It brought structure and digitization to core business functions, accounting, HR, supply chain. It brought order where there was chaos.
Yeah, it standardized a lot of processes, made things much more efficient.
And that's exactly what ServAImesh is aiming to do for internal services, to bring that same level of structure, transparency, and steerability to things like your HR, help desk, your IT, support your procurement workflows, but it does it through AI and with a really strong emphasis on the human element.
So it's not just about technology, it's about people.
Exactly. And this is really important. ServAImesh is not about ripping out your existing systems. You don't have to get rid of SAP or MS Teams or SharePoint. It's designed to work with what you have. It's an overlay.
That's a huge relief, I think, for a lot of organizations.
Right. Because no one wants to go through another massive IT implementation.
Yeah. The thought of another ERP rollout is enough to make anyone shudder.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, this sounds kind of like middleware, and that's a fair point. But ServAImesh is different. It's not just about connecting systems. It's about understanding the purpose, the actors, and the intended outcomes of the services themselves.
It's got that extra layer of intelligence.
Yeah, it's about knowing who's doing what for whom, what the expected result is, and what the current maturity level is, both for the service and the integrated AI.
So it's about the bigger picture.
Right. It's not just about making sure systems can talk to each other.
It's about making sure they're talking about the right things.
Exactly. So hopefully by now you're kind of intrigued by this servAImesh concept. But you might also be thinking, okay, this all sounds very theoretical. How do I actually get started without getting bogged down in, more software? And that's where their paper prototype approach comes in.
Ah, yes, the paper prototype. I was waiting for this.
It's such a cool idea. It's all about logic first.
Yeah.
You focus on understanding the service logic and the human roles before you even think about digital tools.
So it's a low-risk way to start exploring the concepts.
Exactly. You're not committing to anything. You're not buying any software. You're just getting your hands dirty with the fundamentals. And there are three main tools in this paper prototype toolkit. First is the SelfCheck, which is based on the Doppelstern model.
Okay.
You can do it on paper or even just use a simple online survey. It's those same 20 questions, 10 on service maturity, 10 on AI maturity. And it gives you that two-dimensional view of your organization's current state so you can see where you're strong and where you need to improve.
Makes sense.
The second tool is called LENI Role Cards. These are just simple cards, each representing one of the key LNI roles: the sponsor, the advocate, the user, the integrator. And you can use these in workshops to clarify who's currently responsible for what and to identify any missing roles.
So you can actually get people in a room and have them physically sort these cards.
Yeah. It's a really hands-on way to get people thinking about roles and responsibilities.
Reachable and interactive.
And then the third tool is the Servuktion Canvas. This is a larger template designed to help you analyze a specific service. You define the consummate, the object, the nuts effect, all that stuff. And it really forces you to think about the service in a holistic way.
So you're not just focused on the technology, you're focused on the actual service itself.
Right. And the great thing about this canvas is it makes your services visible and understandable beyond whatever specific tools or systems you're using to deliver them.
It brings it to life.
Yeah. And they even suggest a 2-hour mini workshop format that you can use to introduce these paper prototypes to your team. It's a really quick and easy way to get people on board and start thinking about things in a new way.
That's great. So it's very accessible.
Yeah. And they say that a lot of people who go through this workshop have this aha moment. It's like, now I understand why our AI projects are stuck. We haven't done this basic groundwork.
Yeah, because you've got to have that foundation. You can't just build on sand.
Exactly. So the beauty of this paper prototype approach is that it's so simple and low-tech. There's no new software to learn. It's all about understanding the fundamentals in the human roles.
Human-centered.
Right. And it can be applied immediately. You can start using these tools in pilot projects, or even just to have better conversations with leadership about the current state of your AI initiatives.
So it's practical. It's actionable.
So as we wrap up, let's just reiterate the core value proposition of servAImesh. It's about bringing logic, structure, and a human-centered approach to AI adoption in complex, regulated, shared service environments. And it's designed to work with what you already have. No rip and replace necessary.
Enhance, don't replace. I like that.
Here's a final thought to ponder. Could adopting a service architecture first mindset, even if you start with something as simple as these paper prototypes, be the key to finally unlocking the true potential of AI in your organization?
It's a great question.
Right. Could this be the way to overcome those persistent challenges of complexity and fragmentation, and that feeling of being overwhelmed by technology without a clear strategy?
I think it's worth considering.
So I would encourage you to take that first step. Take those self-check questions and have a discussion with your team. Start thinking about those LENI³ roles and who's filling them and who isn't. And maybe just sketch out a Servuktion Canvas for one of your key services. You might be amazed at the clarity it brings.
Sometimes the simplest tools are the most powerful.
So we hope we've left you feeling informed and empowered with some concrete actions you can take. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.